That's good. That's good. I know whatever the Facebook algorithm decides to show me.
Right.
So basically, whenever you talk about games, that comes up.
Right.
Yeah.
What do I talk about?
Anyway. Hey everyone, this is the Ordinary Folk Podcast, where we like to talk to ordinary folk and just have a nice little conversation. I'm sitting here with designer extraordinaire, Tyler Reed. Tyler, how's it going?
I don't know if extraordinaire is the right word for that, but okay. I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best word for that.
Well, you just bought another gilded throne from last I heard.
Wait.
Another.
Wait. What's the context of that? I don't remember.
I'm trying to say you're doing great.
Right. Very good.
So Tyler, like I said, is a graphic designer. So and you do freelance, correct?
I try to.
You try to.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now with freelance, do you prefer that to just the general 9 to 5, or do you prefer the? I mean, do you feel more freedom in it, or come on, man, yawn. You're sitting over there laughing.
It's more out of circumstance than actual desire. Listen, I'm dying to like work a 9 to 5 design job, but it's like, well, I've kind of been all over the place creatively in my artistic career, so it's kind of been hard to kind of really nail down exactly what I want to do. So freelance has just been sort of like what I've had to do to, I guess, just get some work done, show that I've done something, you know, that I'm doing something in my degree and not just kind of wasting it away. It's a way to apply myself.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you mean, because a lot of the places out there are just like, hey, guys, don't apply for this job unless you are a grandfather, basically.
Right. You need 5 years experience and know how to do web design and, like, After Effects and...
Yeah. And you know you're going to get in there and they're going to be like, hey, here's just a simple Photoshop project for, like, months at a time.
Right.
And it's just, it gets agitating, because I know what you mean.
But, I mean, of course, it's always the issue where you just apply for them anyway. But for some reason, I just don't. I just have this, like, it's the imposter syndrome. It's all it ever is. And I really, more or less, I just kind of inhibit myself more than anything.
I know what you mean. Like, I do the same thing where I'm just like, fuck, I don't know if I could do that, when I know I could do it. And it's exactly what you say. You just got to apply. Because what's the worst thing that can happen? They tell you no. It's not like we live in a country where it's like you get denied for, a job and then they just murder your family or anything.
Right.
Yet.
Wait, there's countries that do that?
Yeah. I believe in the existentialist philosophy. If one definition exists, the counter has to exist to define it. So I'm going to say yes, maybe. It stinks because the imposter syndrome is a lot of people will struggle with it more than I think even some people realize, because it sucks, because you basically talk yourself out of stuff. Now, a lot of people chalk up to just like having low confidence, but it goes beyond that, because it's really you just for whatever reason feel that you don't have the skills that are actually right in front of you. And it's almost like you kind of have to play Scooby-Doo with yourself and unmask yourself in the mirror to see that, oh hey, it's just my face under my face still.
Like, a lot of it has to do with my portfolio has been like, well, I haven't, like, designed, like, a brochure. Or, like, it's like those things that probably most of these places are looking for. They're probably most likely looking for, like, more traditional applications of design, whereas, like, well, I'm just kind of as myself. What do I want to do? Well, I want to draw pictures of, like, a cat doing something cool. Or, like, a dog with pizza. It's like... all the things that I'm, like, naturally inclined to do are very not within the realm of, like, what people are looking for. So that's kind of why I've been focusing more on trying to get, like, screen printing or illustration-based kind of things. I think one of the most interesting stories that kind of, like, I've seen is that there's this girl online that I forget what her name is, but I think it's Naomi Romero. She either moved to Ohio or is from Ohio. And she just draws dogs. She just draws dogs. And so BarkBox, I guess, approached her to do, like, illustration for that. And I was like, wait a second.
Tell me more.
I can just draw stuff. And then if I just, like, hustle enough, people will be like, yeah, just come work with us. So I've been trying to explore that angle a little bit.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too, and from what I've been noticing with trying to have this start doing YouTube content and comedy, acting, etc. It's all the stuff that won't make me money. It really is about not being afraid to just throw yourself out there and asking for opportunities within reason. You don't want to be outside someone's doorstep and shit, but.
This specifically reminds me of when I was doing my internship. It was for branding. I was doing like just the logos for, I guess, like startups and stuff like that, and sort of like an NKU based program. My boss was always like, "Oh, I can set you up with like this like brand, this agency." And of course, as like junior, like early senior me was like, branding agency, that sounds corporate and bullshit. I don't want to do that. I'm going to be at these hip indie studios. And I was thinking about in the shower last night, and I was just like, fuck.
Like, you just want to go in a time machine and just slap yourself.
Right. Because if I've learned anything in my life, it's that, like, if someone's like, hey, I'll hook you up, you fucking take the hook up, no matter what it is. Like, I'm a little mad about it, but of course, I don't know if anything would have come of it. But it's just one of those like shower thoughts that you always just kind of like, man, I was really dumb.
Yeah, I have the same thing, and then I just kind of, let me think about the thing that was on Reddit the other day so I can feel better. Right. And it really does go back to the imposter syndrome, because, I mean, a lot of that, too, ends up being like, that doesn't seem like me either. Like, kind of what you're saying, because you were just like, you've said you kind of picture yourself more with indie studios and things like that. When I think, especially with younger kids and stuff out there, you really gotta try stuff too, and just make sure that it's not you, because sometimes you end up being really surprised. If you're already to the point where that time has passed, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get another opportunity either. Because when it comes down to it, it's all about hard work and just like really, as you said, hustling.
I think maybe the reason why I didn't want to go for those positions was because I perceived them as to be boring. And I think that's okay, because I've realized that you can do work outside of your job. I'm like, my day job's really boring. Okay, well, you have like 6 to 8 other hours of the day that you could be doing it. You could even stay up a little bit later and you can do those things. But of course, like, when you're like going through college, you expect this fantasy land to exist. It's no more true than like, I don't know what I expected it to be like getting out of college. I don't know what I just expected, just the magic to happen. People getting offers for things, like opportunities. People were like, oh yeah, sure, have an interview with us. No, it's not.
Like, you just slide down a slide after graduation, just land in an awesome, like, office desk chair. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's very interesting, too, because I didn't exactly have expectations for post-college, but at the same time, I didn't think that what happened really would happen, how it did, because I feel like, kind of what you're describing, I feel like we were projected, in our generation at least, a little bit of a misconception of what might happen.
Well, in 2009, when I don't know when you went to school, but when I was preparing to go to college in 2009, of course it was like, ooh, you should be a designer. That was like the hot thing to do, because it was just at the time when that sort of technology was just first becoming accessible. So it wasn't like, and then we see in like a couple of years later, everyone thinks they're a designer, and sort of like
everyone on Instagram,
it kind of like just like melted away, like all of that like equity like a designer would have in like that time period is just like gone, just disappeared.
It's kind of like someone who's never tried like a good beer before. They're just like, oh, here's all these beers, what's the difference?
Right.
Like, in terms of like designers, not to say that there aren't a lot of great designers out there, but the market's been very diluted in terms of like your competition, to say the least. And I'm doing freelance on the side too. It's very it's rough. It's very rough.
You even had your own quote unquote studio for a while.
Oh yeah, quote unquote.
I'm not speaking on the legitimacy of it. I'm sure it's very legit, but I think how did that work out for you? Well, I want to hear about that more than anything. I don't think you've talked about that.
Oh well, this is about you, not me, man.
Well, but
there was my good friend Josh Whitehead, who was on episode 1 of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's a fantastic designer, much better than I am in that regard, and much more ambitious. He was the one who came up with the idea, and it was called solipsis, based off of it's the root word is solipsism, which is originally everything that exists because you exist, and once you're gone, everything that exists does not exist anymore because you're not there to perceive it, essentially. But solipsis was essentially more of was based off that, and it basically meant everything is kind of united, everything connects, and that came about, or we thought that was a good fit for the name of that because we both felt that good design could change and unify the world, both outside of print and digital, just general good design, whether it's the ergonomic furniture or just the way that a train system is built up for like stops and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's where that came about. Now we only had like 2 clients. Mm-hmm. To be fair, I didn't do my fair share of marketing it because I think that, once again, imposter syndrome, I didn't believe in it because I didn't necessarily believe in myself with it. Josh definitely did, but Josh is all good and fine, and he's out in California doing good stuff.
He's doing what he wants.
Yeah, so but no, that's just kind of how it happened. We kind of just looked at each other and was like, I don't think it's gonna work. And he realistically was getting better offers for like full-time jobs and stuff at that time. He was really taking away time from what we could have done with this anyway. But it worked out for both of us. That's kind of how that went about.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's your views on design as a whole and how it affects the world?
I mean, if you're talking about my
philosophy,
cerebral, my the objective version of design is of course it's that. Of course that has opportunities to help the world, but it's are you asking me more about my personal objectives of design? Is that what you're asking me?
A little bit of both, the general of how you feel just design affects the world with everyone who's doing it together. Oh, and also we can talk about your own actual personal objectives of what your I guess aesthetics and how you feel about it.
I mean,
talking in circles. Just
no, it's just of course design has the power to change the world. That's of course that's I mean, yeah, of course it does.
You got to keep in mind there's people who will listen to this who've never probably thought about this. Obviously you and I have probably heard this a lot going to school and our teachers and stuff. So it seems kind of like fairy dust, anyone can fly if they try hard enough type of sentiment. Mm-hmm. But it really, a lot of people have never heard this before.
So I mean, it's certainly not as hard of a position to think than what is art, mm-hmm. when you're well, art is about context, it's about intent, and you're great, awesome, mm-hmm. Problem solved. Listen, I don't want to have this fucking intro to art class for
yeah, I'd rather them pay the $50,000 themselves and learn.
Right. But I mean, I think the only way I can really talk about it is through my personal context, is I don't think I can speak objectively about the usefulness of design in the entire world, because I make up a very small portion of that. Really, I think my end goal for myself with design is that I want to I think it's 2 parts. I think I want to be able to teach others. I want to be an informer. I want to help people. I want to help so they understand design, which means I should probably be a teacher. But, also, I think I originally had greater aspirations for myself for design, which I wanted to be a creative director. That was sort of my big goal. Mm-hmm. Had some stumbles along the way, so that's kind of taken on a backside. But I'd like to eventually try to get to that at some point in my life. But also, I think I would like to use my own personal interest as a way to help the world in some way. Mm-hmm. I guess specifically, in some way, I've kind of been brewing the idea of how to raise awareness for like animals and like pets and stuff like that through different applications, either through like me creating content and then making donations to certain charities, or maybe just being a part of a nonprofit that deals with animals and helping them that way. So those are sort of two applications where it's like either making the cool stuff that people want to buy, like a pin that's actually cool, or like a t-shirt that's actually cool, or like just making some sort of like web content, or I don't know, helping you with like a website or something for like a nonprofit or animal organization.
Cool. No, you answered it. Nervous laugh. Ha 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 ha.
Right. I am notoriously a nervous laugher.
No, I too am the same way. I either nervous laugh or I just shit my pants.
We shouldn't be talking about this as professional podcasters, but that's okay.
Oh no, I've never claimed professionality. Actually, we've not told the viewers that Tyler is actually 1/3 of the Dudes Brunch podcast. I've about said podcast. Prongcast.
It's about shrimp.
Shrimp. It's very good. It's very tasty. It's great. You get a free thing of cocktail sauce with every subscription to their podcast.
Shit, I would do that. Although most shrimp, I recently found out that what is it exactly? That most when the people who peel shrimp is done by slave labor. Like the vast majority of it that's sold in like grocery stores.
That makes me feel so bad.
I know, it's so delicious.
Every Thanksgiving when my grandma buys that big shrimp tray, I have to think twice about it for sure. And I mean that halfway joking because of the irony or whatever you want to, whatever, funniness, and also that's just fucking shitty.
Yeah,
that's now I'm gonna make sure that I buy the unpeeled shrimp.
Right. I'm sure they still do something. I'm
Probably.
sure they still have a handle on it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, I do a podcast.
That isn't about prawn.
Right, that's not about prawn.
No, it's very good. It's basically yourself, Taylor Olmsted, and I forgot Sean's last name. Sean Evans. And a great bunch of guys. They go on there, they talk about what they ate for brunch, and they all talk about random topics they all picked, and it's usually a pretty good time.
You say randomly.
Well, it's thought out.
Ideally, it's supposed to be about sort of like either things that happened within the week that we're recording, or things that we just found. So it's ideally supposed to be current as possible. But sometimes you find videos of a Lego train, and they kind of derails both literally and figuratively,
which was great. Yeah, it's I want to step back for a second because I want to say that I did not intend to say randomly as a dick, because I feel like it sounded really dicky. I was just searching for words to complete my sentence.
It's okay.
And yeah, it's okay. Sorry. I'll buy a couple.
It does
later.
seem that way. In our podcast reviews, we had like a peer review from like other podcasts, and apparently they said that our topics seemed a little too sporadic and random, which is, we could probably do a better job with that. But
it's okay. I still think whenever the episode airs with me on it, it's which I am on an episode, and it was great. It should be pretty good. I will say, if you're a Blink-182 fan, definitely listen in and hear me talk about how I'm not a Blink-182 fan. And if Taylor didn't cut most of my rants out,
you'll be fine.
Good. Everyone will know. No, but it's a good time. I'll post a link in the description. Before I forget, I'll also post a link in the description to Tyler's actual portfolio. So anyone who's interested in checking out. My
Insta, my Twitter.
Yeah, I'll put everything on there. I'll put the whole deal. So anyone who's interested in seeing his work and hopefully want to hire him for anything, either big or small,
please do. Do you use Instagram?
I do use Instagram. I rarely put any of my things I'm working on there, but I usually just put like pictures of like animals that I think are cute that I see in real life.
Please do.
And
you should do that more.
And I'll take pictures of like if I see one of my toys falling over in an awkward position, I'll just put that on there. It's usually pretty funny to me. No one else. I get no hearts.
Are you tagging properly?
I'm tagging myself in my own photos, so maybe that's my problem. All the hearts are from myself. I'm that asshole. I like my own stuff.
Not even like hashtag Doug, hashtag cute.
Hashtag.
You gotta tag.
I do the tag. I do the hashtagging. But the thing is, weird about that is that I've seen that there's something that does it, but Instagram doesn't seem to do like any type of resharing or. or reposting or anything.
I think
like
there's
that.
a third-party program that does that.
That seems unnecessary.
It does.
You know?
There's also no native iPad support, or
Really?
there's no web app.
I know there's no web app. I wasn't aware that no iPad support. That seems...
You can have it, but it's that stupid version where it's like, you can do like, do you want this at 2x size, or do you want it really small? So it's like literally like the iPhone like size of the screen on the iPad. So it's like, why do you even allow this? I feel like it didn't allow it before, but I think they just eventually were like, just throw it on there.
Yeah, you'd think that... I mean, I get that most of their audience is mostly on like mobile phones, but you'd think they'd actually get like a flowing, like actual organically changing size, like it doesn't make sense.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, first they changed their icon to that really bad icon, and then now that.
We don't need to talk about that. Huh? We don't need to talk about that. It's just okay. It's fine. It's completely fine.
Okay, yeah. Saying it's bad is a bit much on my end, but yeah, it's unexpectedly like feels like a step back.
Right.
That's all.
It's mostly unnecessary because it was doing fine. I don't understand.
Yeah, I liked the camera. I liked the little like brownie looking camera.
Right. I mean, to be fair, it's not what a camera looks like anymore. And like these hip teens are like, what is this? What is this thing? Just like the icon on iPhones is like this phone that clearly hasn't existed for like 10 billion years. Like no one uses a phone like that.
Yeah.
They're like, what is that? They have no idea. So I guess it's just a change in the times. I don't know.
I actually talked about this with one of my other buddies, and it's the save icon on most programs is the little like floppy disk.
Yeah.
And I wonder when that's gonna like universally change.
Never. It is no longer gonna be like the Wikipedia article is just gonna be like, this is the save button. It's like they're just gonna delete everything about like floppy disks ever existing. They're like, save icon. It's like we talked about this on Dudes Brunch like a few weeks ago, where like Matt Groening from The Simpsons and Futurama likes to rewrite history, where it's like they had like cavemen like bashing on like a Ford like 1970s car that's like, this is how the first cars were made.
And then like the first moon landing was like Archie Bunker, like
right,
and it's like that was just a metaphor for beating his wife.
So it's like I feel like that's how a lot of things are gonna end up being, is that they're like, look at these floppy disks are just the save icons now.
Well, it makes me wonder if like the head, like a gravestone's always going to be like the death like symbol. I wonder if that'll ever. That's actually something that I'd be interested in seeing in the future. Like just pop my head in. Not if there's ever world peace. I just want to see what the universal symbol for death is.
I mean, they still make those, right? But I guess mostly people are cremated for the most part now because it takes up less space.
Yeah, it does take up a lot of space. Plus, I just want to be... what band was it? There was some metal band that actually tossed one of their fans' ashes into the crowd during one of their songs recently.
That's not nice. That's a little dirty.
Yeah, it's a little dirty. But all the kind of grossness aside, awesome idea. Maybe not in practice, but
is that what that is?
What?
I don't know if that is an awesome idea.
I don't know. It's just...
I mean, it's a metal idea.
It's a very
that's
metal
what
idea.
You're saying.
Well,
so,
I don't know. I would not want someone's ashes thrown on me. But the idea of my ashes being thrown on a bunch of people at a metal concert sounds awesome right now. I'm not going to say I'm going to hold to that when I'm older and about to die.
I'm sure your grandkids will appreciate.
One thing I think is a cool idea is people now are having ashes of loved ones made into like little diamondy gems type things. I really like that idea. It's
certainly less crusty. You're like, look at this beautiful gem instead of like, look at this jar of dirt. You're like,
At the same time, it's like it makes me wonder like the mental process of like letting go and things like that as well. But at the same time, just having my grandpa is like a cool little like badass like ring. Also sounds really cool.
I mean, I'm in.
You know,
I'm in.
I don't know. Maybe just make me into. I don't know. Just make me into a bath bomb. Just when I die, just make me into a bath bomb. That's all I ask.
You can't see it, folks, but I'm very disgruntled.
Yeah, he's left. He's actually packing up. He's ready to go.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
But you know, that aside, and we were talking about your general portfolio and everything like that. It's
back on some topic.
Back on some topic.
Dead people bath bombs.
To be fair, bath bomb of cremated ashes, great design, fantastic design. Get on that. Whoever the hell brought up bath bombs and why that's a big thing now. I don't know what happened to bubble bath.
I mean, it's all about the branding.
That is true. Honestly, I think that could be sold really well. And honestly, if someone wants to take it, go ahead. I'm probably not going to do anything with it. Like, it's yours.
This is like a snake oil presentation right now. We're like...
It is. It's a snake.
Hey, everybody, come buy my dead people bath bombs.
To be fair, I'm not saying it's doing anything. It's just you're bathing in the ashes in the watered down ashes of your loved one, which may or may not be something you want to do. Anyway, so all that depressing stuff aside that no one wanted to hear about. Now, with design... How exactly did you get into, like, when was your first time when you kind of, like, started getting into art, whether it was, like when you were an adolescent or even as a kid?
Well, it was probably Bring Your Kid to Work Day. My dad brought me to his sign shop, and I probably made a bunch of pictures with trains on Kid Pix, which was a very old, like, paint program for Macs. So that was probably my first experience with design. But I would say my first actual application of that probably came when I was like a junior in high school. I took like a basic sort of like digital arts class where I learned like Photoshop and like Illustrator and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Was I a junior? No, I was like a sophomore. And then I went to a vocational school for a year where I learned about design stuff, which was just a continuation basically of the sorts of ideas where I learned how to like a little bit of animation, a little bit of web design, Photoshop, Illustrator, branding, stuff like that. And then I was a marching band kid, and so my marching band director was like, "Hey, come back to our school and be a part of our band program. You don't need to learn how to do design stuff. Don't worry about that. You can learn that in college." And I was like, okay, because I had trusted his judgment thus far. I mean, he seems like a reasonable adult, so I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And so that wasn't too bad. I mean, I felt like at the vocational school, I felt like I wasn't really pushing myself as much as I could because the classes were relatively easy. They weren't very mentally challenging. And so I basically just like slept in class and just like copied people. And so it was just, I was like, maybe I should leave. Maybe this isn't preparing me for college. Little did I know, it had no eventual effect on my college like work ethic at all. But I digress. And so I basically didn't have a portfolio and didn't get great grades. And so NKU was the best place for me because they didn't require a portfolio and they basically let everyone come in. So that's where I went. And my parents paid my whole way because it's like $5,000 a semester, and that's basically nothing to...
That's pretty fucking cheap.
Right. Middle white class people with real jobs. And it was no problem for me at all. That didn't stop them from guilt tripping me the whole time, though. I was like, you didn't have to pay for everything, and they're like, "Oh, you're so ungrateful." Like, it's not like that. I just am tired of everyone being like, "Oh, you don't have student loans? You're a piece of shit." I'm like, I didn't need for this. It just happened.
Hey, if that's all I had to worry about is just people giving me shit about not having student loans, I'd take it.
Right. But whatever. So, I mean, and then it's pretty much I went to NKU for a few years. I had a terrible falling out at one point in the design program, so that pushed me back a whole year, and then I ended up graduating after 5 years, and it was a good enough time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like you had a similar experience to what I did, because I went to what was Raymond Walters of UC is now UC Blue Ash because better branding. And
I guess.
Yeah, it's like, who's Raymond Walters? That's okay. That's what I was asking when I was there.
All right. Okay.
But anyway, so I went there for what was supposed to be a 2-year program. Ended up doing it for almost 5 years because of stupid stuff. And then I went to Art Academy, and then Ta-da.
Why did you decide on the art academy?
I actually had one of the teachers I had a lot of classes with, named Patrick Schreiber, who's a fantastic designer, and who actually went to like, I'm pretty sure he went to like Switzerland and stuff for like school as well at one point. Or
Very
for like,
good.
Yeah, and he was just a cool guy, and I trusted his judgment on everything. And he was just like, "Yeah, I went to the art academy, and you pretty much can transfer right over. All your credits go." And I was like, "Hell yeah, sign me up. I don't care." $20,000 later, here I am, sitting in my grandparents' basement doing this podcast with you. We're both talking about how we don't make enough money.
Right.
But no, it was a great time, and I don't regret it.
Mm. It turns out, I read about this like yesterday. It turns out that you could literally just fly to like Germany and then basically pay almost nothing for school and get a better education.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Fuck. All right, here's the rest of this podcast. Here you go, kids. Go to fucking Germany. Go to Europe.
Just go anywhere but America, and you won't accumulate millions of dollars in debt.
Yeah, just get a very extended visa. Like, there you go.
And you get to go to Europe. Like, you get to see the rest of the world. And let's be honest, it's probably a good time to leave right now.
Yeah, just wait for this to go to the Winchester, grab a pint, and wait for this all to blow over.
Right.
You know, that type of thing. No, it's great. No, God, that's great. Because it's not like you go to Germany and no one knows English. Almost everyone there, I guarantee, knows English and can communicate with you.
We're the shitlords that don't know anything.
Yeah.
We're the ones that like, I don't know how to speak this language. And they're like, listen, we know like 5.
Yeah.
We learned these when we were like 3 years old. What do you...
Yeah.
Like, we're like, oh, they're the uncivilized. We're the ones that don't know anything. So it's...
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They're just like, we have everything. And we're just like, hey, guys, English. And they're like, yeah, we know. What else? And then we're just like, yeah, it's whatever. Those guys are idiots. They use the metric system. And everyone's like, we all use the metric system, dickheads.
That's right.
If I had that time machine.
That's okay. We all have literally tens of moments in our life that we're like, wish I could relive that moment.
Yeah, it's alright. But that's what life is. You just gotta keep on going.
That's right. Because that was my whole life for like 5 years. I was like, regrets. Regrets. And I'm like, I'm still like kind of like getting over, you know, like the trials and tribulations of my college experience. Because it was like, I specifically remember in my like printmaking 2 class, you know, they basically, it's free reign to do whatever you want. And so I was having like a lot of trouble kind of like finding like my zone. And so at the final like last critique, they had like everyone like write down stuff, and like I presented my stuff, and I was really like dissatisfied with what I come up with, and I kind of like gave this great presentation, and I got like my cards back, and it was like, the presentation was better than the work, and I was like, and so I was like, well, maybe I should just go do something else for a little while. Even though it was like, this is what I want to do, I still was like flagellating myself. I was like, no, you're punished.
Now, obviously, being in design, you have a ton of projects where, you know, you feel like you did a great job, or maybe you came back to it later and you're like, oh, fuck that. And that's just anything when you create.
Like 3 months later?
Yeah, 3 months later. Maybe even 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
But what was the first thing that you designed kind of more pseudo-professionally or even in school where you were just like, shit, I think I'm on the right, I think this is right. I think I'm doing the right thing.
It was probably when I was at the vocational school, when I was like a junior. We had like a branding project, and I had made like all these like logos, and there was like one specific one that like my teacher like was really into. He's like, "This is great," and I was like, "He's like, you should do more branding stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, I should do more of this." And so that was like probably one of the pivotal moments when I was like, maybe I'm not dumpster garbage at this. But I mean, obviously I look at it now and I'm like, well, I used like a stock type, and I kind of did like a really, like, I don't know. There was just a lot of things wrong with that upon looking at it now. But I mean, for like a junior in college, or not a junior in college, but junior in high school, I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And I talked about this with my friend Chris on the last podcast. Do you actually keep like your old projects at all? Like, obviously physical ones, that's a different story because that's a matter of space. But actual digital-based designs, which should probably be most of them by this point, do you actually keep them and find yourself maybe looking at them every once in a while?
Oh, yeah. For some reason, several copies of, for some reason, because it's kind of like you have like the copy of the copy, and just because you have to like put like in a Dropbox, and one's like on your hard drive that you don't need anymore because cloud storage is a thing, and so like I actually have quite a bit of like my very early college work, and then kind of like towards like the middle, it kind of like disappears a little bit. Like pre-college is like almost non-existent. Like I don't even know where that's at, but no, I find myself looking at it sometimes. I actually looked at one of my projects not too long ago. It was like a interview with a professor I had, and he had like I just kind of asked him questions about someone that like that inspired you, and so I really liked him, and he kind of actually taught me a lot about sort of like objectivity and sort of like not being too judgy. It's very like, I was like, what kind of music do you listen to? And he's like, it's not about what he was like, kind of like, it's not really about what you like. It's about experiencing it. And it's like, even if it's not exactly like your thing, you should still try to find like a way to like appreciate it in some context or like meaning. And so he taught me a lot. And so he had a lot of like DIY punk ethics because he liked to like glitch bend like children's musical instruments, so when you did them, you like had like bolts in them, and you could like bend pitches on like instruments. So he he was very like off the wall, very interesting, and I definitely remember designing in such a way that was very sort of chaotic, very weird, and it really felt good just to kind of just be like, whatever, fuck it, like very almost like pop art-esque, where it's like repeated images, very like clashing colors, and I look back on it, I'm like, this is like mostly good. Like I could probably do this again and probably make it like 20 times better, but I'm still like proud of my like going out of like really out of my comfort zone and really trying to really make something weird, because it's like it feels so easy just to play it safe, be very like generic, especially when you don't know a lot. Like when you're like just starting out, you don't know how far to push it. Like especially like if you would just, I mean, to use Andy Warhol, it's like a very like generic example. Like anyone could do like the Marilyn Monroes or like the soup cans. Like that's not technically hard, but to have like the thought process to understand why they did that and like why you should do it and like why that's like a statement, and it's like there's so many like extra processes going on that like when you're like just starting out in design, you don't have no context. You're like, it has to look good, it has to be really hard and complicated, and it's like, no, fuck you. Do whatever you want, and you have to have that confidence to accept something that's simple or like easy. So
yeah, and it also comes, like, a lot of, like, art and design comes to, as far as, like, at least digesting it, comes down to accepting that art on its own terms, which a lot of people either don't or find it hard to do sometimes. Like, how many times have you gone to, like, a public art museum, and there's people there who, they don't exactly take in art a lot, and then they come to, like, something that may be Pollock-esque, and they think, I could have done that.
Right.
But it's like, realistically, you couldn't, because unless you had the same exact thought process and intent, you're not doing the same thing.
Right.
It's kind of like, yeah, you threw a baseball, but you didn't throw a baseball with the intent of it being like, you know, a strike. You just threw it, type thing. In a way, in a very crude metaphor.
Right. And a lot of that, and like, that's basically just kind of reiterating my point that it's like, it's about doing it and like not thinking it's shit.
Yeah.
And like it's like this means something. Like you have the intent of it. So yeah. So
and not holding yourself down and trying to be like, you're nothing.
Right.
I mean, it's healthy to an extent.
I mean, obviously, like, if you're speaking, like, objectively, which you shouldn't be talking about art really that objectively, like, in terms of, like, comparing, like, you're like, the Mona Lisa obviously, in some ways, took more effort than the black canvas. Like, there was a lot more, like, application of, like, form and, like, realism and like just you understand that there's these are apples and oranges. Like there's absolutely no reason to compare them in any way because they're not trying to do the same thing. So
it's like comparing Pink Floyd to Nickelback. Like some people like Nickelback, which is fine. Some people like Pink Floyd, but it's there's different merits that realistically come out for different people.
But even at that point, you could say that Nickelback was probably in some ways influenced by Pink Floyd in some abstract way. So I would say it would almost be like Pink Floyd and like maybe like chiptunes.
Actually, yeah, I can see that. That'd probably be better.
Like a much more like drastic because these are
that's true
in the vast spectrum. Like
that is a better one, yeah.
Right.
I mean, admittedly, I'd love to hear I'd love to see the pinpointed influence of Pink Floyd on Nickelback. I'm not sure if they have like an 8-minute jam song that I'm not aware of, but I would love to hear that. Actually, I would give it a shot.
Are you sure about that?
I'm gonna stand firm with this to basically be my long life quest of trying not to be an asshole.
Okay.
So,
all right,
I give it a shot.
Okay.
So, I'd like to talk about your affinity for tabletop games for a second. Well, not a second, it'll probably be a few minutes. Probably 30. But, yeah, you even came over, you have your little bag of tricks over there with, like, your sketchbook. You said you have your laptop, and you said you have some board games in there, too. How'd you come into love with tabletop games?
Well, aside from being basically born with a Sega controller in my hand, games have been pretty, like, ingrained into, like, my existence, basically, since I've been born. But more specifically about board games was... my dad had a collection of a lot of the classics. He had not only, he had Risk, right, and there's like Monopoly, but there was also stuff like HeroQuest, which is a Games Workshop produced like dungeon crawler, which had such wonderful characters such as Barbarian, Wizard, Elf, and Dwarf, because Dwarf and Elf are classes, right?
Not races.
Right. But this was in like the best part of like fantasy history when it was like first edition D&D, and they're just like, it was
yes.
It was before like anything like was like formalized. Like now you're like, well, dwarves can only be these classes, elves can only be these classes. It's like there's so much more like delicate and like fleshed out. But back then it was the Wild West, and you're like, you're an elf. That means you have a sword and you do magic.
Yeah, you're just some weird battle mage that doesn't make sense and is broken.
Right. You're like, you're a dwarf. You have a battle axe, but also you pick locks. But so that like really, specifically HeroQuest, really influenced my aesthetic and like desires for like games. But there's like Fortress America, which was like a simulation of like everyone in the world attacking America, and so it was like a war game that were. Like, you're trying to defend off everyone from all different sides. And so there was lots of these big, grand, like, dudes on the board kind of games. So that was my real main draw, because that was really the only kind of games that you could really play at the time. It was basically either roll a dice and things happen, or chuck a million dice, guys die, old war games. And so, kind of did that. I eventually grew into a love of Warhammer. Like, my dad had, like, bought me them, just kind of to have, because they were like cooler action figures, because you're like, look at all these elves and like guys on like horses and stuff. You're like, sweet, I really like these. I get to glue them, I get to put them together. So I had just kind of like a collection of those, and eventually I grew into playing Warhammer 40k, which was really my first probably experience with I think starts the era of my modern board gaming career. I had a few people I played with. There was shops that I played at, it's also where I started sort of like gaining like my trading desires and like my buying and selling and hustling kind of like enjoyment. Because I was like, I eventually started like trading and like eBay and stuff. It also didn't help that I played Yu-Gi-Oh for a little bit, which is mostly about trading and trying to get deals with people. But so I was playing that, and I was playing like Warhammer, and I was playing like Yu-Gi-Oh and like Pokemon and all those games. And eventually I found like Carcassonne, which is like a really simple like tile laying game, and that's kind of started when I started kind of finding out about these European style games. Warhammer kind of came and went, things happened, and then sort of like around college, I maybe bought one or two more, but then eventually I realized there's this whole world Board Game Geek existed. I didn't know that existed, which has just databases of like every game that exists. And so I realized that I wanted to play with people more, and so I started a club. And so that lasted for a while. That basically lasted my entire college career. I eventually stepped down from being the president because I was like in this position where I couldn't do anything, because what had happened was I was like, no Magic, no laptops. I let wargaming happen because that was whatever. I was like, I want people to play these new games. There's lots of new games coming out. They're very exciting. Mm-hmm. You should play them. And so, like, my vice president started playing Magic, and then all of his friends started playing Magic, and it was all kind of, like, within, like, my inner circle of, like, people that I knew. They were, like, playing Magic, and I did not play Magic. It's the only card game I haven't played, ironically enough, the only game that's still surviving to this day besides Pokemon. But, so they all played Magic, and I was like, well, he's, like, my vice president and, like, my treasurer, so I can't just not, like, I can't tell them no. And I feel like I maybe have tried to tell them no, and they were like, why not? And so I was like, fine. And then after that, they started playing League of Legends at the meetings.
Oh.
And I was just like,
definitely not a board game.
Right. And I was like, we can't do this. This is not what we wanted to do. And so then I was just like, fine, you guys can figure it out, because I was just tired of it. Because basically everyone was against me within like my like the positions within the club, and I was like, whatever, fine. And then fast forward, blah 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 blah. Some time happened. I eventually started playing games again. I got a job at a board game cafe that's opening soon in OTR in Ohio. So that's gonna be exciting. So I get to teach games for fun and money.
That's truly awesome. Is there like is there actually a site for it that I can put in the description?
BoardGameGeek.com
Cool.
is where you can find literally anything you want about games. My club doesn't. We don't need to talk about that. My former club doesn't exist. It doesn't really matter anymore.
I mean, for the actual the cafe.
Oh, it's the Rook OTR, I believe.
The Rook OTR.
Yeah.
The Rook. Oh, I like that name. That's classy sounding. Very minimal. Mm-hmm. Very to the point. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing the actual logo is a Rook piece.
Yeah.
That's tight. I like that.
It's got 2 floors. Bottom floor for where the bar is. You can kind of come and go as you please, but there's also an upstairs space where you can sit and play games for as long as you want, as long as you buy a food or a drink.
That sounds really nice. That actually sounds really great. Everyone should look into this, because I'm probably going to go there and not be able to play any of the games, because like I love tabletop games, but I'm always bad at them because I forget all the rules.
That's fine, because we're there to teach you. So.
Very good, very nice. I guess right now, what are some board games, newer ones? Because I'm presuming you keep up on them pretty avidly. Mm-hmm. What's some new ones that have kind of piqued your interest that you think other people should check out if they haven't already?
I actually just made a $100 board game purchase today because Cool Stuff Inc. was having a sale, an additional 10% off already. They're already steep discounts. So the things that I ordered, I haven't actually played except for Five Tribes, which has a Mancala mechanic. Have you ever played Mancala?
I've not played Mancala.
Okay, well, never mind that. But I think my favorite company recently has been Days of Wonder. I think they've made Ticket to Ride most famously, and I think they make a lot of games that they're very simple to play, but have a lot of there's a lot of depth, and there's a lot of options for you to you're like, well, I pick up these pieces and I just move them in some direction, and then I pick them up, or something happens. It's a very simple mechanics wise to play, but there's a lot of thought that goes into them. So there's a lot of depth in the strategy. So now you're putting me on the spot. I'm just kidding. I mean, what's your experience with games? What have you played?
Honestly, my experience is pretty limited. Like I said, I like tabletop games a lot, but I just don't have a ton of time. I've played Dungeons and Dragons a handful of times. I'm doing an actual campaign right now with my good buddy Ryan, who hopefully will be a guest in the near future. I have what did I have upstairs? I've got Boss Monster, just the first one, not the second one. I've also got what's that other one? Maureen bought me another one that I haven't played yet. Oh, it's Space Junk. It's where you build the spaceship out of junk. Literally, it's the box has You have a spaceship built out of a cow and a urinal and a bunch of stuff. You just try to make like it's basically like Kerbal Space Program, but as a tabletop game. And man, now you're putting me on the spot. I'm trying to think of everything.
So I gather you have somewhat limited experience, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So, but
I would qualify myself as novice,
right?
Like late novice.
That's fine. But you have played Magic.
I've played Magic a few. I forgot about it. Yeah, I played Magic
and card game.
I've played and card game. That's basically what Magic is. It's the quintessential card game. That's all it is. Just a really, my opinion, really pretty art.
Mm-hmm. So, do you know how to like draft cards? Do you know about drafting like a deck of cards?
I've never been that official about it.
Okay.
I've built decks.
Okay.
But I've never used the word drafting.
Okay. All right. But I mean, let's see. If I was making recommendations about like what for you to play or for our audience to play, I think those are very different things. First of all, I don't know.
It doesn't matter about recommendation, just what you've been seeing lately that you think are very interesting takes. It doesn't have to be like catered to anyone's taste. They can check it out and decide that they don't like it. And for all I care, it's fine. No problem. I'm just interested in your opinion as to what you think are some things to check out.
Well, see, I'm at the kind of the point in my gaming career where I'm kind of trying to find the deeper cuts, maybe the less like pristine games, maybe the games that have a little more flaws but have some other value that makes them like worth having. Because it's like, I could tell you to play Catan, Pandemic, King of Tokyo, Love Letter, let's see what else is on our wall, like Dixit. These are all very like, you can find them at Target, you can just go right there, you can buy them right now. But there's the cycle of board games is so interesting because they typically come out in like Germany first. Like a lot of the like the big ones that people are like really excited about. They come out like over in Europe somewhere.
Another reason to go to Europe,
right? But they're also not in English. But then like a year or two later, they finally get like an American release, and so it's like games technically have been out for like years before like sometimes we even get a hold of them. So it's kind of like. It's not like video games where you just get them. Everyone gets them at the same time, So there's a bit of a different cycle because everyone kind of gets things at different times. And so, a game that may have come out like 3 or 4 years ago is still like, wow, this is a hot new game. You're like, for a video game, that's like a completely different system. That's not even like next gen. You're like, what is this? So... Like, you can still play, like, Dominion. Dominion is probably one of the games that, like, if you're into, like, Magic or, like, card games in general, I would suggest Dominion because it has the same fun of, like, shuffling cards, playing cards, building combos, and that game's been out since, like, 2009, and it's still, like, as fresh as the day that it was released, I would say. So
that's cool. With kind of the bigger advent of digital-based tabletop games, mostly card games that have come out, like most obvious Hearthstone is very popular,
which I love.
Yeah, it's very great. I suck at it, but it's great. Fine. I love it. But with kind of like the rise in popularity of these digital types of tabletop games, do you think that kind of detracts from the specialness of what tabletop games are, or do you think it kind of adds to them because then it makes their tactile feel and everything even much greater?
You already answered the question. Of course, like I think that definitely it makes you appreciate the physical a lot more because I mean, listen, Hearthstone's great. It means that I don't have like a whole stack of cards that I have to keep in my closet because I already have like 10 boxes of random assortments of card games that I don't play anymore. But there's also like just kind of continuing on Hearthstone. There's also the problem where it's like, well, the servers are down, or like you disconnected from a game, or it's like there's also the part where when you're playing against someone, you just BM the fuck out of them. There is like no niceness involved. Nothing on that when you're ever playing like a digital implementation of anything is ever going to be like, oh, let's just have fun, guys. Like,
yeah, it's always dirty.
Right. Like I was playing Pokemon Showdown, which is like a digital version of like Pokemon like battling.
Yeah.
And so like I like messed up like a rule. Like there's like a rule that you're like you can't put more than 2 Pokemon to sleep. And I just kept like I forgot. And so I kept like trying to put like a second Pokemon to sleep, and he was just like, "What are you doing?" You know that doesn't work, right? And he was just like being really short and like really like I'm like, why are you mad at me because you're winning? I messed up. Like, you wouldn't do that to a person in real life. You're not like, oh, you're so fucking dumb. Like,
yeah,
you're not like shitting on them.
Yeah, because the big difference is that they're not in front of you,
right?
And that's I think that is actually a formality that's very missed with like online competitive games. Is you just lose that kind of nice, more communal feel a lot of the time, especially if you play like something that's not like this and you play like a shooter or something like that. And that's the usual stuff of just toxic environments.
You never accept a friend request in Hearthstone because 9 times out of 10 they're just gonna be like,
yeah, they're doing it just to shit on you.
Yeah, like, oh, friend request? I think you mean shit on you request. Like, what?
It kind of reminds me of whenever I played Street Fighter 4 on Xbox 360 when it came out. Whenever you got a message from somebody you just fought, you don't read the message.
Right.
Never a good time. I definitely answered my own question on that, but I wanted your more in-depth take on it.
But so for just that alone is enough. But there's also a lot of, obviously, tactile. Like, the feel of, like, playing a game can sometimes make a game by itself. Like, the act of, like, moving around pieces on a board and, like, how they look and how they have you, like, you kind of look at things and you're like, oh, this looks so aesthetically pleasing. Like, there's an entire game called Splendor that is just, like, it's a pretty basic game where you just collect these gems and then you buy stuff with the gems. You're like, oh, that's really easy and probably sounds boring. But all the gems, instead of like being like little like tokens or like physical like pieces of gems, they're like these poker chips, and you can like clank them together, and they make all sorts of sounds, and you can and they're like a nice thick like plastic, and they're good in your hand, and that like is completely lost on you like when you're like if you were to play like a digital version of that. So whatever,
finished.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be put together.
You should definitely cut all of this.
I might splice together and make it a coherent sentence.
Every single thing that I've just said should be cut.
But I think we're almost hitting time now. After our whole little superhero showdown of talking. But is there anything you want to promote? Did you want to toss anything out about Dudes Brunch or your own work coming up?
Hey everybody. You can find my work at TylerDReed.com. You can find me on the socials as TDR Design on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow Dudes Brunch on Twitter as Dudes Brunch. And you can also look up dudesbrunchpodcast.com. I think that's all the right socials.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
We record on Sundays, and we air them, I think, on Sundays as well. The previous week's episode. So check it out. We talk about pop culture and breakfast food, but not necessarily in that order. We're also the late night morning talk show podcast. Lots of things. Let's see, what we talk. I'm trying to think of what are we talking about this week. Actually, it's not going to come out this week anyway, so it doesn't matter.
But yeah, you guys should check it out. I should be on an episode that's either, I don't know if it's out now or it should be out soon. So I'm on there. Once again, I talk about how much I am not a Blink-182 fan and how much I love Legos. And it's a good time. So check that out. And thanks for listening, guys. This has been Ordinary Folk Podcast with Tyler Reed. Tyler, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
Let's get some food.
Woo!